welcome to GirlBoss New Zealand on the GirlBoss Show, and we've got an amazing lineup for you today where we're going to be talking about business life and everything beyond, and we've got some pretty amazing guests with us today, so I'm so excited to have these two gorgeous girls with me today. So first up, we have got the amazing Greer Wilson, who is a 15-year-old student at Massey High School, and she's the founder of Young People Have Voices.
Thank you, Alexia, so much for this opportunity.
It's awesome to have you here, and she's done amazing work in the mental health space and been awarded with a GirlBoss Award, which is pretty incredible. And we also have the amazing Dr. Angela Lim, who is a medical doctor, CEO and founder of her very own tech company, Clearhead, which is a one-stop shop for everything mental health to help New Zealanders with their well-being and mental health, which is pretty amazing. She's also a researcher and done some amazing research at Harvard even, and does incredible stuff with charities and boards, and a really incredible woman. So we've got such a fantastic team today. So I thought the best way we could start is by sharing our boss moment. Who would like to start us off by sharing our boss moment? Do you want to
I'll go straight
go
into
first,
it
Greer?
if you want me to.
Yeah.
So it starts back in 2018. Being 13, a newbie at high school, and not knowing anyone, I was apprehensive to standing out. However, I started to make some new friends and quickly realised that a lot of young people are facing mounting pressures in situations they didn't know how to navigate. It became apparent to me that for a lot of young people to live up to the pressures of doing well at school, making their parents proud, navigating family issues, as well as being happy with themselves as a person they were, was coming at a cost to their mental health. When I learnt a close friend was self-harming, I knew I had to do something to help. Coincidentally, Phil Twyford was taking his mental health hui around New Zealand, and I decided I was going to be the voice of young people and what we needed to see change in the mental health sector. Over the following month, I surveyed my high school peers, their families, and the teaching staff, collated all the information I received, and attended the hui during the school holidays. It was very intimidating, as I thought there would be opportunity to speak. However, I had to butt my way in.
Wow.
And ask for my chance to speak on behalf of young people. I shared with Phil Twyford and the hui what I had learnt and the recommendations of my peers and their community, which were included in the government submission and became part of the working document. So that is my boss moment.
That is a very amazing boss moment, which is so incredible that you did that you had that idea and you executed it, and then it went on to have impacts on all New Zealanders. And that
was amazing.
Yeah, and that's exactly why you're a GirlBoss Award winner. I love that. And what about you, Angela? What's your boss moment?
I would have to I'd have to say that actually making the jump to give up medicine, which I've trained with for more than 10 years, and just say, hey, nope, I'm just going to completely start from scratch and do something quite different, nothing to do with medicine, in terms of the degree that I had trained in, and actually run my own company, be responsible for like 7 employees, and so that's it's been a real boss moment for me.
Taking that leap of faith, and I know that it's such a difficult thing. What was it that really, was there a moment when you decided to take that leap? Was there something that spurred you, or did you just do it on a whim, or did you think about it over a number of years? What was that?
Yeah. So I knew that since medical school, I was gonna take a step outside of just being a medical doctor, and I really wanted to make change at the systems level in our health system. But I often always felt like, the timing wasn't right. I don't have the right skills, don't have the right networks. And it was in early 2018, and I was just 28, and I was like thinking to myself that, I had a really good life, but I was coasting, and that if I don't take the leap of faith now, I never will. And so, so it was that reflection, during the holiday period that made me say, okay, let's just do this. And it just kind of set all these things in motion. And here we are today.
Growing from strength to strength.
Yeah.
So how we like to do it here on the GirlBoss show is we like to do some live mentoring. So we've got one girl boss, we've got another girl boss, and I really would love for Greer. Do you have any questions for Angela?
I have a couple.
Good.
Okay.
So, through the research I found that young people feel more valued when they are included and supported, whether that is part of a common interest group or a sports team. However, a challenge a lot of the young people face is access to these groups due to financial constraints. Through Young People Have Voices, my aim is to ultimately match young people with scholarship/funding that would remove this constraint. The challenge I'm currently facing is I don't know how to move forward. I know I need a steering committee/board to advise and support me. Could you recommend me ways to find the right people?
Sure. So I think you're doing a lot of the right things at the moment, which is you're being vocal about what you care about. And it's when you kind of share what your passion is, you will attract others who are passionate with you.
Right, okay.
And so the best thing you can do is with every person that you meet, just share your passion, just share what you're doing. Sometimes it's the people you don't expect that would end up being your biggest advocate. They'll be the one that says, hey, Greer, I know this other person, I can't help you, but I think this person will.
Yeah.
And then you might meet that person and either, yes, they're the right person for you, or they'll be like, I'm not the right person, but I know this other person. And it just grows to become this like movement, but it always has to start with you.
That's awesome.
So I think you're doing the right thing. So keep getting your word out.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I've done that once. I went to someone and they said they can't help me, but I'll give you this guy to talk to. And I spoke to him and now he's helping me.
Awesome.
He gave me some funding for Young People Have Voices.
Oh, fantastic.
Awesome.
Yeah.
That's super cool. And I'm really interested in that idea on, do you need a board? So, for example, for GirlBoss New Zealand, we don't have a board. So we have a lot of advisors that I tap on, but, you've been on some boards as well. Would you recommend that Greer gets a board, or do you think it's necessary?
Okay. I do have an opinion, but maybe we
Yeah.
start with asking Greer, why do you think you need a board?
I feel, just myself, this is my own opinion, I feel like it's a big job to run your own company, and that you might need people to help you if you fall back, and they can be there to basically pick you right up and support you in any way. So just a board that can help you with financial things or anything like that would just be really good to have. That's my opinion.
Awesome. So what I'm hearing from you is that you want basically advisors in areas that you might not be comfortable or knowledgeable in.
Yes.
And I agree with Alexia. You can either do that by having a board, or you can just have informal advisors where you reach out to them when you need them. So that way it kind of manages sort of the touch points that you have. But at the same time, the other thing I'm hearing is that you just need people to help you with getting the work done.
Yep.
And so in that case, usually a board isn't very active in terms of like getting their hands dirty. It's actually just saying, can you build followers with you who understand what you're trying to do and could see a way that's supporting you and your organization. They would have that. They would be able to help you achieve this shared vision. So I think what you need is to build a group of followers who can work with you, and advisors that you may or may not choose to put together as a board. But in terms of happy to share my experience on what it's like to be on a board. So there's huge value in having a board. Clearhead has advisory boards. We have two actually. One which is a clinical advisory board, which is really important when you're looking at healthcare. And their role really is to kind of advise me from a clinical safety perspective, managing the risk. What are the things you're not thinking about? Here's the reality of what it's like to be a doctor in the GP office, and using Clearhead may or may not work because of this reason. We have another board, which is a business advisory board, where we've been really lucky to have very senior healthcare leaders who've built credibility through the organizations that they've lead, to provide us advice on, hey, these are all the things I've learned in the last 20 years. Don't do that. But, here's an opportunity you could explore.
That's awesome.
So it's really just being clear what it is that you're hoping to achieve with it. And yes, a part of having that advisory board is gives your organization a credibility. So if that's something that's also important to you, it's a proxy way of getting credibility for your organization.
Awesome.
So I thought that I should.
That's awesome, yeah.
And how would you suppose that she'd reach out to apart from having those conversations, sometimes it can be hard to make that ask. So, how do you recommend that she makes that ask? Is it by just, stating what the time commitment is, or what do you think is the best way?
Yeah, so my belief is that what's the worst? What's the worst that can happen, right?
Yep.
If you don't ask, the answer is always going to be no. If you ask, the answer could potentially be a yes. So the benefit always outweighs, but always do it in a way that is not too confrontational. So what I mean by that is, you've had a great conversation with them, you got a good sense that, okay, this person actually gets my vision. This person have the right values that matches mine.
Right.
I do think that having them as an ongoing interaction with me and my organization will be helpful. And so then, to close it off, you can say stuff like, I really found that super valuable. It would be really great if we could meet again, in 2 months, and I can update you about what I'm doing. Or if you have a bit more time and you want to, and you really think that you can help me with my organization, I'm trying to put a board together. Would you like to be on that board? So just being really explicit about what you're after.
And offering multiple options is a really good way. Because, they might maybe not say yes to the board straight away because it might be early stages, but if you keep them involved in the conversation and then reach out to them later, then they may have more time free and still
never know.
Join
in the end.
Yeah, exactly.
It's all about really building those relationships and actually it has to be a win-win situation.
Yes.
From your side, you're like, oh yes, I'm getting someone on board who has all this experience, but also you have to think about it from their end, like what will they get out of it? And for some, it might be really personal, like they have a young daughter that's going through mental health, and they really believe in the cause, and that's why they're helping you. So it's just like trying to, when you're having those conversations with them, it's also listening to say, what is it that matters to you, and that is why you're here sitting with me having this conversation, and then using that to kind of take the next conversation
Think
forward.
of the backstory.
Absolutely.
Awesome. In your opinion, Angela, what is the best way to get in front of the people who can help me with reaching my goals? Would it be phone calls, emails, in person? Yeah.
Like how to get in touch with them?
Yeah.
Like if you don't know them?
No. So if you meet with someone and you want to speak to them again, would you say do it via an email or via a phone call or via in person?
I think the best opportunity obviously is when they were there with you, and then you close the meeting off with making sure you set something up. But if either you forgot or it was too awkward, I find emails is the least confrontational way, and so that could be something, because sometimes when you're calling someone, you could surprise them while they're, I don't know, out doing the laundry or something. So I think email's the easiest, but probably the most effective is when you're already there with them.
Awesome. I have just a last question in this Mentor Me section. The not-for-profit sector is very full, and there are vast numbers of charities or social enterprises doing similar things. What are your suggestions for standing out and having a point of difference when applying funding or meeting with potential investors?
Yeah, and that really is you doing your homework and being able to clearly articulate what is the difference. So New Zealand is notorious for setting up charities. I think we're number one in the world, but
per capita than anywhere else in the world.
But also, so to the point that I think they said it's something like one charity on every street in New Zealand. So that's how many charities there is.
That's
and
amazing.
so, and you think about it from a perspective of there's limited pools of money. If
Yes.
everybody is trying to fight for that small little pool and everybody have the same overhead, it's not the best use of our limited dollars, right? So it's really important for you to think about what it is that makes you different, and how is this value only able to be delivered by you and your organization, and then be able to say, here's what is happening now, and here's why we're different. So being able to give very concrete examples of how you're different and why you're the best person to deliver this new value that currently does not exist.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that.
Yeah.
I would definitely take that on board.
And on your perspective, what makes young people have voices unique? Because I know there is a lot of things that is unique about how you're doing that.
Well, for starters, I'm basing it on my own experience with friends, family, and then I'm wanting to, and it's just youth, run by youth for youth at the moment. So I find that's one difference, and that if we are heard, then more youth will be on that. So the difference we're making is getting more youth to be confident about their mental health, them speaking, them getting into sports. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's what is, and that's great about that unique point is in the name, young people have voices.
Yes.
So, even that's, if you can just keep thinking, how can I bring that to the forefront? How can I make sure that people know that if they're looking, and even other potential charities in the mental health space will go, well, where can we go to get youth perspective? And they will, hey, young people have voices, can give us, their perspective on this. And there could be some really great opportunities for collaboration.
Yeah.
So I think, I can't wait to see how you keep going
Thank
from strength to
you.
strength.
I agree.
So what I'm really interested in, Angela, and I'll get in you too, Greer, is you've been involved in so many different areas and you've created change in so many ways. You've created change as an entrepreneur of a tech company. You've created change as a doctor in academics, also with the Ice House, working and getting funding, which is amazing. Charities. Is that all of them? So, in your perspective, what is the most impactful way to create change? What avenue is the most powerful to create change globally and maybe even from a local level?
Yeah, I think that you're going to be most effective at creating change if you're working on something that you care about, genuinely care about, not because it looks good in what other people would think it looks good. And so the first thing is that, making sure that you're working on something that you genuinely care about. The second is then, the reason I've done so many things is because I was trying to figure out what I was good at. Like in my 20s, it was very much just about trying all these things and trying to figure out what was I talented in and so that I'm not, for the same amount of time, I can get, more results from it. And so that's the second thing is like, just as you try all these different things, figure out like what is it that I'm just super energized about. Like after a meeting with that charity, I'm just always like super happy, and then I have all these ideas coming out, and I've like got all this energy to do all the work that I've set out to do. So thinking about what energizes you and what it is that you put X amount of effort gives you a much bigger return. So basically, it's very individual what will make the biggest impact of change. From a more strategic level, if we think about Clearhead as an example, the reason why we've taken the technology route is because it's scalable. So a large part of the challenge of dealing with the mental health of our country is that the demand far outstrips the supply. And you can't train more mental health workforce overnight. Even if like the government drops $1 billion tomorrow, it will take easily 3 to 5 years before that workforce is trained and then integrated into being able to help people. So that is one aspect, the time aspect. The other aspect is it's not as scalable in terms of like at the moment, it's a very one-to-one relationship. So I'm in the consult with you, which is really important. But at the same time, it means that you're limited by your ability to spend on how much workforce you want to grow. And therefore, that's a one-to-one ratio with the how much that individual can touch with another person at any point in time. So from my perspective, in terms of the largest impact of change is through technology, and in our case using basically artificial intelligence, so you can get the best of both worlds, where it feels like you're interacting with a human being, it's very empathetic, but it's completely scalable because it's a machine.
I love that.
That's amazing.
I love that.
Yeah, thank you.
That's what really always appealed to me about technology, is that it can be used as merely a tool to create change. So and I think that's why the first question we should be asking ourselves, and young people particularly, is what problem do we want to solve? And then what's that method and that tool? What tools are we going to use? Is technology one of those tools? And I really like that. What about you, Greer? What's your thoughts on where you can create the most change, even looking forward to your own career? Are you thinking of, politics maybe? I'm not sure.
I don't know. Half my class says you'll be Prime Minister one day. So no promises there, guys, if you're watching. It could be politics. I haven't thought much about this.
Yeah.
It could be just social media, because this new generation is growing up with technology, and the ones that didn't grow up with technology, so these ones that grow up with technology will just know everything with technology. So through technology might be the best way to bring it out there. It could be really anything, because our world is still evolving, and technology is still evolving. So you never know.
Yeah, there could be even more new ways to create change, like VR, AR, even some other initials that we haven't even invented yet.
WX.
Yeah, probably. I love that. That's amazing. And even like your point around young people growing up on social media, and I think growing up online, and then also reference to social media there. And I think often in the conversation around mental health and why our young people are struggling, that social media piece gets put up there. And I think it's got mixed. I don't know if is it been proven? What is your thoughts? Have you looked into that link before?
I think that there's sufficient evidence that depending on how you use social media, it can negatively impact on your mental health.
Yep.
So obviously there is the good cases where it's been able to kind of instigate what they call social change that is leaderless. So you didn't, and social media was a channel in which to reach people that basically resonate with your message, that you previously could not find that tribe. But at the same time, the technology companies like the Facebook and the Instagrams are very much about creating very addictive behavior.
Yeah.
So, if you ask yourself truly, what's when you go to bed, what's the last thing you touch? Probably your phone. What's the first thing you touch? Probably your phone.
Yeah.
And what were you doing on that phone? Probably on Facebook, probably on Instagram. And that sort of passive consumption of information have been shown to be quite negatively impacting on your mental health.
Just becomes a habit.
Becomes a habit, but also there's a lot of subliminal messaging that comes from basically people just sharing the highlights of their life, and you're comparing the realities, both the ups and downs, with people's highlights. And if people are only sharing highlights on social media, whether consciously or subconsciously, you basically ingest this idea that everybody else is having perfect life except me, and therefore you can kind of really get into quite negative spirals.
Yeah.
And what about you? Yeah, and that's a great point. Greer, have you seen that as a young person in school today? Have you seen, how does social media impact you and your peers?
Oh, our school has had to put a phone ban on.
Wow.
They've become really strict. Students used to be in class, be on their phone, be on Instagram, Facebook, Snapchat, Twitter. So that has become quite a big problem in our school. So they've banned that.
And in terms of mental health?
Yeah, we've seen a lot of people go to the counsellors recently, and some because of online bullying, destroying their mental well-being, and emotional well-being. So, yeah.
Yeah, so you see that even from what age you sort of started to see that?
I probably started seeing it in year 7.
Wow.
People coming to school sad, and you'd ask them why, and they'd just say just people being bullies online, and that's when you just start seeing it. So 2016.
Yeah, and a lot of parents are sort of wondering what do we do about the social media, and sometimes they don't even know what their young children are getting up to. And as a young person yourself, what would be your message to parents in terms of their children's social media usage?
Always check on your child. Just make sure they're okay. Make sure that they aren't spending too much time on their devices. I can't say much because I am a little addicted, but just make sure that their whole life doesn't evolve around their phone. Make sure they do go out. Make sure they do see people in real life, not just at school, because you don't know what goes on those phones.
Absolutely. And Angela, as a doctor, what's your advice to parents?
Yeah, I think when you're thinking of sort of each different age band. So, for example, if you're trying to take away your 16-year-old phone, it's probably going to be like nuclear war right there. Versus sort of like, your 4 or 5-year-old kid that's constantly on the iPad, which you can actually place limits on. So it's very much obviously what stage of is your child, and really setting sort of those healthy balance right from the get-go is probably much easier when you kind of establishing the rule that as a 6-7-year-old girl that that okay, when I go to dinner with my family, no phones is allowed. You're probably going to take that when you're 16 and 17 versus sort of like when they're younger you just let them do whatever, and then suddenly when they're 16 you're worried and you're like, nope, no more phones. It just it's about how do you establish those rules very early on consistently, and then also if you're deciding to do this much later when they're in their teenage years, it's actually just having the conversation around, actually I respect you as an adult, I respect that you know what you're doing, but I care about you and these are the things I'm worried about. Work with me to try and find a good compromise so that you get your freedom and I get my peace of mind.
Even saying that to a child might just do it. My parents care.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think what's even interesting is what I'm seeing is actually more and more parents and adults are actually starting to get addicted to social media and being glued to their phones almost just as much as their kids. And how is that to navigate as a parent when you're telling your child, and you may have even seen that before, one of you, when you're trying to navigate that and put in boundaries which you yourself may not be following.
Exactly.
So are we seeing a rise within adults of sort of social media addiction? Have you seen that?
I think that, like I said, the way that these companies have designed the product is designed to be addictive, right? So if you think about Netflix, this idea of like after you watch one show, it automatically plays for you the next show.
Yeah.
Same
so
thing
good
with
for binge watching.
Right. But it is also, so basically you don't have...
You're not even opting in.
And basically you don't get the signals that, I should stop. Right? Oh. So if you think about it, if you watch the show, at the end you have to actively decide to watch the next one. It is a introduced mechanism in which that behavior is checked. But if you kind of remove that mechanism, then as humans we just keep going because we're not having mechanisms in which to kind of manage the behavior.
That's really interesting.
Yeah, so that is just one of many, many examples. Yeah. So one of the, so if you think about then, so what is an example of a mechanism in which that would stop? So think about, for example, when you're scrolling on your feed, whether that's on Instagram or LinkedIn or Facebook, you scroll maybe 1 or 2 scrolls, and then it says that's the end of what we will show you.
Yes.
That is an enforced mechanism. That is a deliberate choice to introduce into the platform, versus sort of an endless scroll that you can just keep going. So
that's possible. That'd be.
Yeah, I wonder. Have people is there a way to teach ourselves to bring in that mechanism? Like, you have to stand up and like walk around the house if you're allowed to start another Netflix show. Like, do we have to try and bring in our own mechanisms? Is that a strategy?
Yes, absolutely.
Does anyone use any mechanisms here?
Yeah, so one of the more common ones is people actually I can't remember whether that's something you can set on your phone or just you download an app, but basically you can set, I will only use 1 hour of social media. And so then the phone obviously passively tracks that, and then when you exceed that hour, it will ask you, you've exceeded your hour that you've allocated for yourself today, and then then it is an active choice that you're deciding to go forward with.
Yeah.
That's good. Yeah. Do you have that on yours?
I don't, but I can share with you like one way I manage my load. So I, in general, a lot of my social messages, whether is I chunk them. So I will, unless it's urgent or you need a reply from me soon, I will generally just reply all my social messages in the weekend. And then so you sometimes we message, and you'll often find that I will reply you once a week. Yeah, and that's just a rule I've put for myself.
That's fantastic. I love that rule. Right. That is amazing. I actually might have to steal that one.
You could try.
No, it's really good. And I think, because what I've found is, with me on social media, with my emails, I'm really comfortable to batch them, and then I wait and I know, but on social media you suddenly get a notification, you feel that pressure to reply straight away. Is there any strategies that you're using, Greer, to...
Well, if you think about if we go back to like the Netflix sort of thing, like binge watching, usually if you come to the end of an episode, I usually go, right, that's the time to like stand up, go to the bathroom, and then get a drink. That's the time, like, you decide, do you keep watching?
Right.
Do you stop?
So you pause it. It's because you got about 4 seconds before it starts. You quickly get in there.
Or even if you, like, stop it halfway through. My family likes to binge watch a lot of different things. So usually we have had a couple times where we might watch the whole season, and then it'll get to the end and be like, here's a new trailer. And you'll be like, what time is it?
Yeah, it's so easy to get drawn into that.
Easy.
Yeah. Do you have another question?
I have more questions for Angela if she's keen.
Always.
So, who had the biggest influence on you getting to where you are now, and why?
Oh, I love that.
It's actually my family, but not my immediate family, my extended family. So that's like my grandma and my auntie, and like their story is that, like my mom's family kind of grew up in this abject poverty in Malaysia, and so they had like 7 siblings, and all of them would sleep in one room. They would have 1 meal a day. Majority of them didn't even finish primary school because they had to work to support the family, and most of them beat all the odds of not having networks, not having wealth, not having education, and became self-made millionaires, right? And to be able to go from that, and so I'm always like, I have so much more foundation compared to that, and if they could succeed, why shouldn't I? So I'm always reminding myself that my family beat a lot of odds to be where they are, so why should I can do it too. So that's my kind of like, on the days where I want to like give up, which there are many, it's just remembering that it is possible, and that I really care about why I'm doing this, and that I genuinely believe that if we don't do it, it would be very hard for someone else to do what we're doing, and so we should keep going.
And what do you think is unique, about that situation? What did they have that they were able to overcome those odds? What do you think it was?
I think it was just like a sheer drive, and like they just set goals for them. So my auntie that I'm really close to, she basically said, my goal was I wanted $1 million in the bank by the time I turned 30, and she did it.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's inspiring.
Yeah. So I mean,
she set that goal and then she delivered on it.
Yeah, right. Yeah. And I mean, she hustled really, really hard, right? And and so I think that it's really being very clear about what you want, and then giving yourself no excuse on needing to do it.
And do you think that, was it that drive that inspired you, and was it also that you actually were able to realize that you're limitless in terms of your potential?
100%.
That's amazing.
And because it's so close to home, right, literally, that you can see like, oh, it's possible. And I think that that's what it means to kind of, when you think about being inspired by powerful women, is that you see yourself in them. And that is why it's important for us to be able to continue to have visibility around women making change, because you never know which is the next generation of women leaders that you're enabling simply because you're there.
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah. What is something that's you were told that has stuck with you for good or bad reasons?
Ooh. Wow. Do you have one?
What is something that stuck with me for good or bad reasons? I think definitely realizing so I don't know if I was told it, but realizing pretty quickly that you're never too young to create change. And I think that's something that I've really carried through with me, and I think that idea, and I think I probably really received that from my mum, but that idea that you don't have to wait till you reach a certain milestone or for you go out there and do what you do, and you don't need to play by someone else's book. And I think often when I was growing up, I kind of felt like I needed to prove myself before I could go out there and create change. I needed to wait until I went and got a university degree or until I finished high school. And I think there's sort of the lesson that hit me the hardest and that had the biggest transformation on me was when I thought, actually, why can't I do it right now? And why do I have to play by someone else's rules? And why do I have to wait until I'm older before I actually start solving the problem that I'm passionate about?
Yeah, and I think for me, it's you'll realize very quickly that if you are agitating for change, you're going to piss people off. It will happen. Even if you do it in the most sweetest, most diplomatic way, you are going to be unseating people who are very comfortable where they are. And so one of the things that have been really interesting for me is that, since I've started, I'm very much a newcomer, very much considered disruptive in the way that I'm proposing how we could potentially deliver better care. And this idea that basically there are people, that I have pissed off because of that. And I think that there's two ways to look at that. One is that, there's a part of you that as a woman, you'd be like, oh, maybe I should just shut up and not rock the boat. But actually you have to remember that if you want to make change, and if the change that you're making is making an impact, it will you will piss people off. And so that's okay. If as long as you know what you're doing this for, and you're doing it in the right way, right? If you're doing it like while backstabbing people and all that kind of stuff, then that's not good. But if you do it with the right values, ethically, and you're driven by the right incentives, then I think that you keep going. And that's something that stuck with me with what someone has told me last year, that I'm pissing quite a few people off. But hey, I one thing that I know for sure is I am consistent and I'm honest. So I am never afraid that the person that I talk to in one room is going to talk to the other person that I talk in another room, because I know that they'll know that I'm saying the same thing.
Absolutely.
That's awesome.
I love that. And I think that's something that even I've had to learn, which is around that idea. And I think particularly because, and for me, and I'm sure this might resonate to both of you, is that as women, we tend to value that we're liked. And, growing up for a number of years, I was very, rewarded, that I was well liked, I was good, I got good grades, my teachers said I was a pleasure to have in the classroom. And, what happens is then, once you start getting to, start increasing your impact and start being a bit more disruptive, even though your values are the same, even though your purpose and the mission is always the same, people start to kind of feel a bit threatened or feel a bit competitive or tall poppy syndrome or
100%.
something, and you start to frustrate people.
Yeah.
And what has even been a learning curve for me, really just over the past year, is that I can't keep focusing on just making sure that everyone else is happy, because what I know is that even when I'm 100% that person that I've always been, people can perceive it differently, particularly when you start to have increased impact.
Yeah, and I think that, and I remember in high school, which, where are you going to now? You know, I was at my peak in terms of people pleasing and trying to be someone that I'm not so that people would like me more. And I think the epiphany for me to stop doing that was one day I kind of came to that realization where even if you're perfect, there will be people out there who hate perfect people. So you cannot please everyone. And if you're gonna not please everyone, you might as well be yourself.
And what about you? What about your experiences on that? And, you know, you're a very high-performing 15-year-old.
I swear half my school hates me now because I talk so much in assemblies. I shared a presentation about younger voices mixed in with our school value. And then I got one comment after that saying, you're not good enough, you're not going to go anywhere. And that's one that stuck with me. And I just want to prove that person wrong, but not be rude about it, if you know what I mean. Yeah. So I've had things like that happen. Yeah,
absolutely. And, you know, it's really disappointing that in New Zealand, when someone does choose to stand up and be passionate, and I think, you know, a huge part of why I started GirlBoss New Zealand was, you know, I was really passionate about these social issues, but I felt like I couldn't express that, and I couldn't have a tribe or a community or no one in my school who I felt shared that passion with me, so I was forced to go outside of my school. Yeah,
you get laughed at for being who you are, standing up. I've had so many people who think they're above everything just laugh at you going, ha ha ha, this is all stupid crap.
And for being too earnest and saying like, really, you really think you can make a difference? And you know, it's a really frustrating experience, but you know, one thing I hope that can provide a little bit of motivation or inspiration for you is that so many of my friends in school who are just so passionate, you know, I meet at different events, not at my school, but in high school generally. And now they're going out there and they're actually achieving that, and they are actually making a huge difference in the field that they're passionate about. And you know, the problems with schools, I think, is that you're brought to these people, but you have nothing in common apart from the fact you live in the same area. But once you start moving into different spaces, like through the GirlBoss program, then you can actually find people that also are earnest and also know that they can change
like when
the
you
world.
Came to our school and did the GirlBoss program, I saw girls in there that I never thought would do anything like that. And I was just like, oh my gosh, there are people I know that want to do things but haven't said anything about it.
And I think often we feel too scared. A lot of people might be sitting there feeling like you. And they actually might be inspired by you standing up there, but might not even have the confidence to express that. And often we hear those negative voices louder. But there's actually a lot of people that are both positively support and vocally positively supporting you, but also a lot of people that are probably really quietly inspired by you.
Because you never know, the ones behind closed doors could be like, go Angela, but you never know about them. Go Alexia.
Absolutely. Even, you know, younger students at your school, have you noticed?
We've just got brand new year 9s, and I haven't spoken to many of them before, but I do have to share a presentation to them on Friday with one of my classmates. So it'll be the first time that him and I speak up, show who we are. Yeah.
I think the main thing to note is just that, you know, in high school, there will be certain things that you think are important as measures of success, and that you may, in pursuing what you pursue, may not be fitting in those measures of success. Like, are you going to all the right parties? You know, do you have a boyfriend? And you'll find that, you know, when you get older, those measures of success will change. And so just as long as you keep true to yourself, that's the most important thing.
Definitely is.
I got amazed at how quickly those measures of success changed. Like, I'm talking like 3 to 6 months after high school finished, they radically shifted for me and my peer group. And so I think, absolutely, I couldn't agree more. Do you have any last questions?
I have one more. Okay, if she's keen for it.
I'm always keen.
So what advice would you give someone who's met a stumbling block in their journey, whether that's not getting into a course or have failed at something else they really wanted, because a lot of people may just give up at that point?
I think it's easy to say, but, you know, don't give up. And all I'll say to that is that when I reflect on my life, on where the trajectories around the next height I've been able to reach that I would not have thought, it was always on the back of a failure. So when I applied for medical school the first time, it was straight after my first year of university. I did it purely because everybody else was doing it, like, so I was in a class of 1,000 people, and when 1,000 people are saying that they want to apply for medicine, you just be like, oh, maybe I should apply for medicine. And I did, and I was very close. I was, I think, like a few people down before being accepted into the class, but it was the best thing ever to not be accepted, because what ended up happening was it started this journey for me. So I had to really ask myself, do I want to reapply to medical school? And if I do, why was I applying to medical school? Not because 1,000 people are applying for it. And then also think about, what is going to continue to help me be different from all the other candidates applying for medical school. And that was when it all started. So it started with me basically spending 3 months in the Ukraine in the depths of winter, and teaching English. And I was like, and that was when I kind of really saw inequality for the first time, where you literally on the same stretch of road have like these most flashy shopping malls and Ferraris outside and like slums on the other side. And that was like, I was like, oh, okay, that's what inequality looks like. And then that was kind of what kind of triggered something in me, and then I started to kind of do more things that was about tackling inequality. But all of that started because I didn't get into medical school the first time. I think if I had gotten into medical school the first time, I would not be here today. I would just be a doctor doing something, but not trying to do something beyond that.
Our teachers teach us fail, first attempt in learning, and they just keep it with us. They're like, what FAIL stands for? First attempt in learning. Cool. Instead of failing as you failed the class, you're done.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's amazing. And going to Ukraine to teach English.
I know, super random. It's like, it was crazy. It was like minus 20 degrees, and I had like snow up to my hips. I had I was like literally wearing 10 layers of clothes because it was so cold all the time, and it was like the last layer would be this massive polar bear of a fur coat.
Oh my gosh.
And like fake fur. And it was funny because I met some New Zealanders while I was there, and we're like, oh, let's meet up when we get back to New Zealand, and we did. And the first time we met, nobody recognized me. They were like, Angela, you're skinny. I was like, because I literally looked twice my size with all the layers I had on. But yeah,
that is so funny. I love that.
Amazing.
Okay, team. So what we're going to do is we've unfortunately reached the end of our show, and it's been such an amazing time with both of you.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you. So what we're going to do is our last thing is we're actually going to each think of a word which we're going to take in to our week. So what's a word that you're going to take in? Like an idea, a word, a theme to drive you. Who wants to go first?
I've got one.
Okay, cool.
Good job.
Courage.
Courage. And why courage?
Courage, so I can keep going. I can, when I fail, when I fall down, when someone else falls down, I have the courage to pick them back up.
Oh, I love that. I think you're very courageous.
Thank you.
Look forward to hearing how you can be, how you're going to continue to be more courageous.
Thank you.
I think for me, and that was really inspiring. Really being brave. We've got quite a few big GirlBoss projects coming up. We just launched a GirlBoss Advantage program in Christchurch, which is super exciting. And so I think just keep being brave, keep pushing out what we're doing. So yeah, my word's brave.
Oh, nice. So. Well, I won't be brave then.
You have to quickly change.
Like being brave or not giving up is often a very common one for me. But for me, my week will actually be joyful. Just be joyful.
Awesome. Love that.
Yeah, it's been a really good week. It's been hectic as well. We're pushing out a lot of new features out in the platform.
Oh, cool.
Which we're really stoked to kind of get to. But also just we've had this week has been a lot of basically users giving me feedback about their experience with Clearhead, and it's just been really validating for us to keep going. And so it's made me really joyful, and being able to kind of end today with a great conversation with two amazing young women it's made me joyful.
Absolutely, I love that. And how can people watching this get involved with Clearhead, and what services can they get access to?
Yeah, so Clearhead is a free-to-use website and a mobile app that you can download. You can have a chat with the chatbot, help you figure out, what it is you're going through, get some insights around having it all put together, and then having a clear step around, okay, what do I do next to improve my well-being? So we provide that so that you can do it all in your own time in the privacy of your own home. And it's free to use, and
completely free. Clearhead.org.nz.
You got it.
Awesome. It's really incredible.
Thank you.
Thank you so much to these two wonderful women. If you've got any more questions, feel free to drop them below and let me know who we should interview next week. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
That was good, team. You did a fantastic job.